Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's three prakim Rambam. Hilchois, Mikvois, Prakim, Ches, Tes, and Yud. And we are starting with the 8th chapter. Pedek Shmini is all about the combination, the Chibur and the Tziruf that could function, that functions under certain conditions when it comes to a mikvah. This chapter has 13 halachas, beginning with halacha aleph. Says the Rambam, any body of water that is in contact with the mikvah, it becomes halachically like the mikvah proper, and we can immerse in it, and it's as if, and it is that we immersed in the mikvah. Cavities that are near the opening to a mikvah. And if you have areas where animals stepped into, so you have again these little cavities in the ground, and there's water in it. If they are connected to the mikvah. Now, how large must the point of connection be? And here's the key words, literally meaning like the mouthpiece of a drinking pouch. In other words, this is a significant point of contact. And as the Rambam is going to write later, it's an area that one can insert two fingers. We're speaking about the index and the middle finger, and be able to turn these two fingers in either direction. Then, Madvil and Bahem, we can travel in these gumais. Obviously, we're speaking about a keli that can be fully immersed in it. Point is that is considered a connection. Halacha beis chadrei hama'aram, cavities at the side. We're going to touch the word ma'ara here as a mikvah. Similarly, whether they are cavities or whether they are sitkei hama'ara, crevices by a mikvah, madbilim behem, we can travel in them. Afal pi she'ein hamayim shebehem va'yirav mimei hamikvah ela b'chol shuhu. There, even these cavities, even if their connection is not kishifay feres hanoid, but it is in the most minute amount. Since these cavities and halacha beis are inside the mikvah proper, unlike halacha aleph, where there's something at the side of, by the side you have to have kishif feres hanoid. If it's in the mikvah proper, so there's a crevice, there's a cavity, there's a crack, there's something in there, any connection is enough. Halacha gimel machat shehoyisa nesuna al malos on mikvah. Needles are placed on the steps of the mikvah. You're one of all these needles. If you're going to put the needle in the mikvah, you might lose it. People would put it on the step. Even if one's hand is that which is moving the water to splash over these steps, as long as this wave goes over the mikvah and the gal is connected to the waters of the mikvah, then the machat becomes tahor. Uka is some sort of hidden reservoir, which is under the ground of the mikvah. Under the ground of the mikvah, we're speaking about a natural ground, an earthen ground. If the land, if the earth that's separating this uka, this reservoir, this hidden reservoir, and the mikvah proper is b'riyas, good, healthy, and can stand by itself, so then it creates a real separation of. And therefore, you cannot travel in there, since it's considered not in the mikvah proper, but even though it's underneath it, it's considered a separate cavity, like halacha aleph, you have to have a connection, at least in the size of kishifei feres hanoid. But if the karka is so weak that it cannot stand by itself, so then it's considered like halacha beis. And therefore, yes, Madbilin bom halacha hey kaisel shebein shnei mikvah is like let's just see if there is a wall that's separating two mikvahs, but it's cracked in half, meaning vertically. Then we say mitzdarfin, it's considered one mikvah. It's as if the wall does not exist. The im hoya b'shneihem, if together you have 40 some, that's the word. So then the halacha is matvilin b'cholachas mehem, because the Rambam is saying that this wall, since it's cracked vertically, the wall is halachically not there. So therefore, it's one mikvah that has 40 sub. However, the im nistak law eight, if it's cracked horizontally, then aim it's starfin, then they don't combine. In other words, each cavity, if you have the shifet feres hanoid, only then do they combine. If the wall is not going above the waters of the mikvah, so there's waters of the mikvah that's going over the wall. How much waters do you have to have? In the most minute amount, even only keklipas hashum, in like the peel of a garlic. That is the height of it. Now, how wide does it have to be? Here you have to have the width of the shefet feres hanoid. Then mitzvah. So amazing. Until now, we have various shiurim. You have the classic shefet feres hanoid. You have scenarios where there's some crevice in the mikvah property, and now when it's over the wall, it says like you have to have the height is a minimal, but the width has to be k'shefet feres hanoid. Halachah. Now let's define. We spoke it out by heart, but kamahu shir haneked shuhu k'shefet feres hanoid. Says the Rambam, it's the width of the two fingers of an average person. And again, the Rambam is going to write clearly, it's not the thumb. Normally in halacha, when we speak about a finger, we dafka speak about a thumb, and not here. And you should be able to rotate your fingers in the hole. In other words, it has to fit very loosely in it. The aim of agudel, it's not the thumb, but it's referring specifically to the first two fingers of the four sheba pasayat that's in the palm of the hand, what we call the index and the middle finger. Now, what happens if there is something that you stuck in this opening that has the minimum size of shefet feres hanoid, but now it's clogged up? Memayit. And the chiddush here is even if you put something in the shefet feres hanoid area, that they were created from water. Sometimes we say something that's created from water is water. And if that would be the case, then it would not be something that's considered halachically something that's clogging or diminishing the shefet feres hanoid amount of opening. We do say that it diminishes it. So if there is a doubt whether this hole is large enough, so then we say it does not combine. Why? Because since even though the shear, which is a halacha l'Moshe Sinai, which is a 40 sa'ah, is sometimes we can be more lenient when it comes to a halacha l'Moshe Sinai, or quickly taking a step back when you have a suffix in a doiraisa or machman, a suffix that we can be lenient. Halacha l'Moshe Sinai at times is also something that we can be lenient. Says the Rambam, it's not exactly that way. If the halacha l'Moshe Sinai is giving you a detail regarding a din that mi'ikari is doiraisa, it has a din doiraisa. Then we say speik shiurei also is lahachman. Beautiful. Halacha is that a mikvahs can be purified one from the other. If one is on the top, if it's connected to the one on the bottom, then something that's far from something that's near, meaning ketzah. If you have two cavities, one of them is not a kosher mikvah, the other one is, so you want to connect them. You can bring a earthenware pipe or a lead pipe. The Rambam is making it very clear that a pipe is not considered a keli. And now you want to make sure that the waters go from one to the other. So first of all, you can fill up this pipe with water. If the pipe is a pipe, you put water in one end, it's going to go out the other end. So you put your hands under one of the ends, one of the openings, until it fills up with water, and your hand is keeping the water in it. And now you connect them between these two mikvahs until the waters that are in the pipe will touch with the mikvahs of the other water. And here we say, in other words, the pipe has the shear of this shefet feres hanoid, right? However, does the pipe have to be filled with water? No. Even if there's a minimum amount of water that is mamish connecting both, then dayoi, because shahasilin b'neim has a din of a mikvah echad. Beautiful. Halacha ches sholish gumay shabanachal. One second. I want to just add the following. That actually, that Rambam is saying, Actually, the Rambam is saying at the end of Allah Zayin, the Rambam doesn't say Shifei Feres Hanoit. He says you take a pipe. That when do you need a Shifei Feres Hanoit? This is important. We don't pass in this way, but that's what the Rambam holds. Only when a mikveh has less than 40 sa'ah, like he began in this chapter. So the mikveh that has less than 40 sa'ah is only considered connected, and mikveh if the connection is Kishifei Feres Hanoit. However, if both mikvahs have that shiur of 40 sa'ah, the issues are, let's say, only mayim she'uvim, which is a problem here that Rambam holds that you don't need Shifei Feres Hanoit. And the Tur and the Ramah argue with the Rambam. And that's why, for example, nowadays, when you go into your mikvah and you see this connection in the opening of Shifei Feres Hanoit, because we don't go into the mikvah proper, we go into basically city water that now has Ashaka and Zriya, etc., with the sides. We do have, even over here, even though the mikveh has 40 saw, where the person goes into has 40 saw, we also make our Shifei Feres Hanoit. Okay, it would be spoken of. If you have 3 cavities in a wadi, just a mitzias where water collected in all of these 3. And let's go to they are on an incline, just to get the bottom one, the top one, the bottom one and the top one have 20 so. And the middle one has 40. Now, the Shetef Shal Geshamim Oiver B'Teicha, there is this wave, there's this flow from rainwater that is flowing and connecting one with the other. Even though it's going into one and going out of the other, and it looks like it's all connected, it's not considered connected. The Ein Magbilim only in the middle one. Why? 1 second. Okay, I get it. You have to have, if the top and the bottom don't have 40 saw, you have to have a Shifei Feres Hanoit. But the Rambam doesn't say that if there's a large amount of water, it's good. It's never good. Why? Waters that are flowing never have the ability to be ma'arif, to join. They can only join it if it collects in it. And yes, going in through a pipe is considered collected. Gavaldik. Masha'enkin, if there's no pipe, if it's just flowing down, so that does not create this connection. Halacha 9. Titrach, soft mud. Soft mud, it's so soft that when a cow is thirsty, it's going to bend down and drink that mud. That is considered water, and therefore it's measured with the mikvah. Hoya ave, if it's thick, define meaning. How? Then it cannot be measured as part of it. If there's 40 saw with mayim and with tit, it's amazing. You can travel in both. As we mentioned in halacha test, and the Rambam makes it clear. What tit are we allowing you to travel in? This type of tit that's so soft that what? Shahamayim sofin al gabov. Now, see, the Rambam wants to make a nuance over here. So first of all, the tit that a part of Shoicha v'Shoisim Emenu is combined with, can you go in it? Actually, the Rambam says you have to go into the mikvah waters. So if the tit is underneath it, even so, when your foot went in it went into the mikvah waters. That's the pshat. Beautiful. What happens if they're side by side? Then indeed, which is a gavaldik. No, but the Rambam is saying that the tit combines, but you cannot go inside the tit as the mikvah. Beautiful. Anything that's created from the water, like yachbush and abdumim, these red worms, madbilan, boy, you can toivel in it. And therefore, this is the famous example. You can be toivel in the eye of a fish. That you have this giant fish. The eye decomposes, and it's very liquidy. Since it's created, the fish is created from the water, as we have in the Chumash. Therefore, it is considered water. Gavaldik. Halacha Yud Beis, mikvah sheyesh bayar boim sa'a michubanos. If you have exactly 40 saw, the yardu shnayim and tovlos achar, and 2 people go in, one after the other. What's the issue when a person emerges? When you leave the mikvah, some of the water is stuck on your body, so now the mikvah won't have the 40 saw. Even though the legs of the first are still in the water, he's on the way out. But you can argue, well, if his leg is in the water, then all the water of his body is connected to the mikvah. We don't say that. The first one is takator. In other words, even though the foot is touching the waters, but the water that's on this person's higher parts of the body are not considered to be in contact with the waters that are in his leg. That's touching the waters. If a person immersed a thick sponge, something that absorbs a lot of water, and you lifted it up. Here we do say that as long as some of this sponge is still touching the waters, there's so much water in the sponge that all of the waters in the sponge are considered to be touching the waters of the mikvah. And as we mentioned in halacha beis, in other words, since it's considered to be, it's in the mikvah, the edge of the sponge is in the mikvah. If the waters are in the mikvah, we don't have to have the shefet teres on it. If you're traveling a bed, even though the only way to immerse it in the water is by having the legs going into this thick tit. In other words, the tit is not even combining to the 40 saw. Issue here is that the legs go through the waters, but then they go in the ground. In order for you to be able to have the top of the bed under the water, the din is why? Because the legs only made it into the tit ha'ava by first going in through the water. That's beautiful. So even though it's not in the water all at the same time, we consider this to be a proper tefillah. If you are traveling a very large pot, you got a problem over here. Why is that? Because we're speaking all about the mikvah that has an halacha yud base exactly 40 saw. When you put this large pot in the water without making the following extra efforts, some of the waters will splash out. Which means by the time you put the whole pot under the water, the nimtza chaser ma'arboin. So what should you do? First of all, turn it over. But then you want the waters to go in it. So you put it in gently, and then when it's under the water, you turn it up, you turn it right up. So now the waters go into the mouth. And then when you remove it, you lift it up by the base. Why do you lift it up by the base? Because if you're going to lift it up with the bottom on the bottom, even if you're going to turn it over after you removed it from the water, you got a big problem. Because when you lifted the big pot, for that moment, the mikvah was missing the 40 saw. Now when you turned it over, the waters in the pot is mayim she'uvim. You're going to put mayim she'uvim, right? 3 leg of mayim she'uvim will pass a mikvah. Particularly because we're speaking about a yoyre gedolah, which means it has more than 3 leg. Beautiful. Halacha Yud Gimel, the final halacha of this chapter. Mikvah shemeimav middle dadim. If you have shallow waters, you have the 40 saw, but it's very big, it's very wide and very long, but very shallow. So kodesh, you are allowed to gather the waters even by using chavile kash v'chavile kanim, bundles of straw, bundles of reed, by putting it around the water. Umin atzdadim ad she'armu hamayim l'mayla. In other words, you are rising the water level by diminishing, right, the size of the mikvah. You are allowed to do it. Now, just to be medayik, that some of the Rishonim hold, why do we have to use this chavile kash chavile kanim? Why don't we add more water? Normally, the rule is that once you have 40 saw, you can add as much water, even shulem, as you want. So some of the Rishonim learn that even if you are able to add a lot of water, you are not allowed to add mayim she'uvim, even though you have 40 saw, if the mayim is middle dadim, if the waters are very much dispersed. And that's a big topic of a machlokes between various Rishonim. Moving on to today's second chapter, Hilchos Mikvos Perek Chi. Now we're going to be speaking about the 6 categories of stringencies, of levels that we have in a mikvah or in a body of water and its ability to be metayer you. Gavaldik. And that's the Gavaldik Esikum on all of the different categories. This chapter has 18 halachas, beginning with halacha aleph, says the Rambam. Sheish mailos ba mikvah zula mailam mizul. There are 6 categories of mikvah. One is superior to the other. The first lowest level of waters that are good for something is what we call mei gevoim. Okay, waters collected on the earth. Now they include waters on the earth, umei boiros, waters that are in the pits, or shichin, umaris, all different types of pits. It's all about waters that are now collected bakarka. That we know that these waters are she'uvim. It's not like the rain fell and there it is. You gathered it in a pitcher and you poured it on the ground. And even though it doesn't have 40 saw, you had all the chesronis. In other words, we learn in Hilchas Tuma Seicholin, Perek Tezvav, that water is makabel tuma, but only if the source of tuma had contact with the ratzain of the owners with that water. We can presume that no such contact happened, so at least we consider those waters to be toim. We can presume that no one that was tamei touched it b'ratzin. Okay. Now, just to make it clear, many limit this din. They say that we're only speaking about scenarios that the waters gathered because it's the rainy season, and we're not afraid that people had contact over there. Because if you know that people were there, then lav dafka, all the megaboyim will have a becheskas tar. But indeed, the Rambam is writing generally, that's the din of megaboyim. So what do you benefit? Listen, this is not a good mikvah, but at least if you want to make a dough and you want to then separate challah, and therefore you want to make the dough b'taro, you are allowed to use these waters. If we would have had a status of tuma on the waters, then you should not make a dough that you still have to separate challah, because then the challah is going to be tamei. Also, when it comes to washing netilas yadayim, what waters can you take? You could use it for netilas yadayim. Obviously, the Rambam is writing, you are not allowed to be toivel your hands in the megaboyim, and for that to be considered a proper substitute for netilas yadayim, or tfilas yadayim is also good, but not a megaboyim. So you have to use a keli. Right? That mayim she'uvim can only be matayim the yadayim if you took it in a keli and you poured it b'koyachadim. The point is that megavoyim have a status of tahara. That's number one. Now halacha base. Now we're going to go into the next level, even better. L'mayla man is what's called meitamsis. Meitamsis means rainwater that has not yet ceased flowing. Meitamsis shalei pasul. El adayin agshamim yordim. The rain is still happening, and the haharim beats him, and there is a certain gushing that's happening down slopes. And now when they flow down, they collect on the ground. However, these are not she'uvim. Now hold on, that's a gavaldik. So that's a mikvah. No, it's not a mikvah because that's halacha base. So it's called meitamsis. So the din is they are ksherim letruma and veliklamim layudayim. And now more than the megaboyim, you can toivel your hands in them if your hands became tamei. This is gavaldik. No, it's even though these waters, since they don't have 40 saw, cannot be metayed, not oven nor kalim. But when you have tumas yadayim, and yes, you can take away that with netilas yadayim. This is already good also for tfilas yadayim. Now that's only meitamtzes shaloi pasku. The rain waters are still falling. Pasku hageshamim if the rain stopped. But there's still a flow on the mountains. That's still good. That's still considered meitamtzes. But pasku hadim. The Einom beats them. If not only did the rain stop, but now already, a few minutes later, the water stopped flowing down the mountains. Now you have stam gathered waters. Now it goes back to the din of megavoyim. And for example, you cannot be toivel your hands if they became tamei. Yes, you can remove it with a keli to do netilas yadayim, but not good for tevila. Halacha gimel. We're still in category number 2. If a person digs a pit on the side of the sea, on the side of a body of a river, or in a place of a swamp, that's the meaning over here. In other words, even though it has less than 40 saw, since it's bitzad, you can toivel your hands in gavaldi. If you're digging on the side of a mayon, of a well, of a natural spring, if the waters now are going to enter this area, that the pit that you dug, because of the mayon proper, even though there are times where this flow is interrupted, they have a din of a mayon, which is amazing, as we'll learn later, the greatness of the springs. But if it completely stopped flowing, so now you have the spit, it got filled with water from the mayon, But right now, there's no contact, and there won't be contact with the main mayon. So now this goes back to the status of the first Mailah of halacha aleph, mega volume. You cannot even toivel your hands in this water. Halacha hey. Now the third category, Mailah mihen, is mikvah sheyesh b'arbaim sa. You have a mikvah, and there's 40 saw, but it's from mayim that's not she'uvin, which is what we call a mikvah. So that's good. Yeah, it's good for almost everything, but not for everything. Shaboy toivel kolam, a mikvah in which any person that's tummy can go to the mikvah chutz min hazav hazachar. Unlike a zava who goes to a mikvah, and that's just as good as a mayan by a male zav, whether he had 2 de'iyas or 3 de'iyas, independent whether he has to bring karbanos or not. There's a special chumrah there, and that is that he cannot go to the mikvah. He has to go to a mayon, and not a mikvah. And obviously you can toivel your hands even la kodesh, even la kodesh. Oh, and just do it. Okay. And let me just add something. Whenever you have tumas yadayim for kachin, when your yadayim are tummy, as far as kachin is concerned, netilas yadayim is not even an option. You have to have tefillah. Fine, that's a good mikvah to be toivel your yadayim. Now, what will be even better? Halacha vav l'mayla mizeh. That's already category number 4. We're going mol mata l'mayla hamayim. Hamayim shemeimav mu'atim. Right, very little water, and what you did was the heat all of mayim she'uvin. You drawed water in Caleb and you threw it into this mayim. Roiv mayim she'uvin. Says that Rambam, this type of mayim shavel mikvah, which is she'ein metarim b'mayim hanam shachin mimenu. Waters that are flowing out are no longer good. The only thing that's good is elas b'mayim handikvim b'oimim be'eshbeidim, the waters that are collected, that are stationary, even though in it roiv mayim she'uvim, doesn't matter. Since you poured the mayim she'uvim on the main mayon, the makam hamayon, it's like a mikvah. So how is it category number 4? It should be like category number 3. It should be only like a mikvah. Says that Rambam. The shavel hamayon, there's one chiddush shumatayir b'chol shuhu that you don't need the 40 saw. Now whatever is going in there has to be fully submerged. So the Chachamim were Meshayir that Adam Benjamin needs 40 saw. And what about if the guy's little? So it's good. But Kalim are good. Shahamayin Elanim of Shia. El Afil of Kol ain't even the most minute amount, as long as the item is completely under the water, becomes started. So that's the Mila of Halacha Vav over Halacha Hey. Now Halacha Zayin, Lamaila Mizet. Now we're going to go into the 5th, to the second to last. Hamayon. You didn't mix mayim she'uvim. Elameim of mukim. So 1 second, it's not a bona fide mayim because the waters are not pleasant. For example, the waters are very bitter, or the waters are very salty. So we say harehu mitayid even bezoichalin, even when the waters are flowing. Ve'ein hamayim hanigradim v'nemshachim and hamayim, waters that are outside the mayim, as long as they are still coming from and constantly connected, they also are good for tefillah. And that's how halacha zayin is one up of a halacha vav. Like we mentioned, that you have to, the halacha vav, you have to be in it. Here you can even go into the waters that are outside of it. But what is it not good for? Halacha ches, and that's going to be taka, the greatest, highest level, the best type of mayon. Mayon mizem, right? The 6th maila hamayon, a well shemeim of mayim chayim. And mayim chayim means living waters. Living waters means that the meimav are not mukim. Shabahem bilva toivlim hazavim hazvicharim. That, like we mentioned, not a zav can go to a mikvah, but a zav can go to that. And furthermore, only from those waters do we take water latalas hamitzoyra, or and ulakadosh mehachatos. Nama bein mayim lemikvah. If you want to make a quick synopsis, hamikvah in a matayid elabar boim saw. The hamayim matayid, like we mentioned, b'chol. Yes, the item or the person has to be fully submerged, but if it works, it works. Hamikvah in a matayid elabar shvoidim. The water has to be collected. Avol hamayim hanischalim yimenu, but waters that are flowing out of a kosher mikvah are no longer able to be matayid, but the mayon matayid b'zoichalin. Hamikvah loitala by tefillah l'zavim. In a mikvah, zav won't fulfill his purification. Hamayim im hoyu meim of mayim chayim. Mayim chayim means again that it's mayim that are not mukin Hazav Tleivel Bahem. Beautiful. Halacha Tes. When you have water of the spring that's flowing out into a receptacle that's made out of stone, or a receptacle that's a keli, that's very important. So it's going into a keli. And then there's so much water, it goes in the keli, and then it falls out of the keli. And it keeps on flowing. Now, if it would have been stopped flowing out of the mine, we just said you can go into the mikveh and that mine zoichal. But here, first it went into a keli. So the din is that they call the waters that are in this receptacle, and the waters that flowed out of the shoikas are psulin. It became invalid. But here's a chiddush. If some of the waters from the mine are flowing over the edge of this receptacle, in other words, some of the waters don't enter, some of the waters do not become disqualified. How much is the sum? Even the most minute amount. Now this is amazing. So the waters in the shoikas are not good. No one can go into the waters inside the receptacle. But now, again, the waters is going in, the waters are going out. When the waters are going out, the waters that are out have still in it some waters that never went into a keli. All of it is good. And that's why even this kol shehu mayim has the capacity of revalidating all of the waters. Now, when the waters of the mine are flowing into a pool, that is already filled with water, and they are gathered there. Now, I don't care whether the waters in the pool are shuvim or not. Because since there is a connection between the waters in the brecha to the mayon, so first of all, that connection, as we learned in the previous chapter, makes it into a mikveh. Now, once it goes out of this brecha, is it possible here we don't say, if there's a little bit of the waters of the mayan, then the waters outside the brecha are good as a mayan. No. Fakert, we have to know that all of the original waters are no longer there. And now once we know that, yes, it's going to be good for a zav. Unlike the beginning of halacha tes, in halacha tes we began with a shoikis, with a keli, which is much worse. Here the waters never went into a keli. So as long as you had no prior waters, then the waters, when they are out of it, is a din of a mayin. Halacha mayin sheimim b'mshach magabar kelim. If waters are flowing over a keli, but a cable without a receptacle, like on top of a shulchan or of a sapsal chayitzavahem, hareze kemikvam, which is good. At least, in other words, the waters can only be purified if they're collected and they have 40 saw, but then it will be good. Unlike again halacha tes, where once the waters went into the shoikas, even though they went out of it, it's going to be psulin completely. Here it will be good, but only when it's not on the shulchan. Which, even though it has no receptacle, never can you toivel on the cake. Halacha yudal. Mayin shoya amas katanas amshachim imenu. So what do you have over here? You have this mayon, right? You have a natural spring, and small, let's say, irrigation ditches are flowing from it. Now, you want for there to be a lot of water in these irrigation ditches. The waters of the mayon are not supplying that large amount of water. So what did you do? You added mayim shuvim in the mayon, and now more waters are flowing out. This is what caused, all right, the waters in the ditches to be filled up. In other words, the waters were poured in the mayon. So the din is harayim kamayin l'chodav. But that's only because even without your adding of waters, there was waters in the irrigation ditches. It wasn't in the quantity that you wanted. But at all, if none of those waters are flowing out, and the riba all of mayim, and you added mayim shuvim in the mayim, but you added it to the point that this is what's causing the waters to leave the amas mayim. So then the waters now the waters that are outside the mayim are only like a mikvah, and they can only be metayer be'ashvayim mulvad. On the other hand, they are shavam l'mayim l'tayir b'chol shu. Beautiful. And I'll tell you why, because even though a mine is matayir b'zoichalin, here it's only being zoichalin through koyach adam. None of it was flowing out. So as far as that is concerned, it doesn't have the status of a mayim. Allah your base. Kol hayamim, the Rambam is paskening here, and I know that this is subject to a state of the Rambam, but that's all of the seas, metayir b'zoichalin. Oh, they, despite the fact that they are flowing, they have the ability to be metayir. You know what's mitzad this? They have a din of a mayon. Mitzad sheni, they are not good for azov. Ula mitzeroim, ula kadesh, mei chatos. They have a status of waters flowing out of, and they don't have a status of mayim chayim. Halacha yuginu, hamayim hazoichlem min hamayim. Waters that are flowing out of a mayon here, harim kamayim l'chol. But that's only if they're flowing out. What about if they're dripping from a spring? So even though they're constantly dripping, it's called they bother people. Drip, 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 but it's not a flow. Then it's only the waters outside, the waters from these drips are only like a mikvah. And therefore, and only when they're oimdim, ashbaiden. So therefore, so now, what happens if you have both? So waters are at times flowing out of the mine, and sometimes they're being mixed with other waters that only drift out of the mine. So what din does it have? Here we follow the Rav. Then they're going to have a din of noif, which means only of a mikvah. This is a big halacha, so you have a nar. And primarily it's waters from the underground. But during the rainy season, we go again, basar roiv, it's roiv make shamim. The moment it's roiv make shamim, zoichalin is not good. Now, how do you make the waters in a nahar that's flowing, a river is flowing, how do you make them ashbayim? You could do it, and this was learned, as the Gemara tells us, that Shmuel made for his daughters the following. But think of tzarech lahakif mapots. All you need to do is to take a mat or something of the like and put like a box inside the nahar. Hama oirav achi yakovu hamayim, until the waters gather inside this mat area, and you can travel in that, and that's amazing. And that's considered in this scenario as the ashboiden that's needed. Halacha yudalet noitim shasam zoichalin. When one caused water that was only dripping to become a flow, how would you do that? A lot of it has to do with the quantity of water, pshita, but some of it has to do, even if you have the same little amount of water, if you have some sort of, let's speak about something that, an earthenware. You have a flat piece of earthenware, and you put it next to the source where the water is coming out. And therefore it's descending. The incline makes the water go from dripping into flowing. Which is smooth. Now are nischalim v'yardim aleha. Amazing. So the din is harei eluk shedim. Now the waters in the collected area are considered to be connected to the mayam. However, what are you allowed to use to make the waters that are only noitfim into zoichalin? Only something that's not mekabel tuma. Avol v'chol davar sheyes mekabel tuma, even if it's only mekabel tuma medivrei soifrim. That's what we dafka use. The piece of broken earthenware. Ein maschilin by cannot be used, and if you use it, it has no effect, and it's only considered mine that are not. Halacha tezvav zoichalin shekilchan ba'alei egois. When one used, let's say, an external green shell of a nut to change the direction of water, shedim kishohayu, right? As we just mentioned, she'ein alei ha'egois halach shutzeveya. Chashut kekelim, for us to say that we learned in halacha yudalid, right? That anything that's makabel tumah, ein maschilan boy, yes maschilan boy. Halacha tezayin neik shamin. Haboyim in hamidrain. Oh, this is Gamal. So rainwater is cascading down a hill. And it's the nischal in the yard. Now, obviously, we're not speaking about a mayim that we get. We're speaking about mekshanim. So let's see in a second. You having the whole torrent that's connected 40 saw. But still, it's mekshanim. You cannot label when they are flowing. What do you need to wait for? They have to gather and they have to be stationary, altogether in the amount of 40 saw. So, very similar to what we learned before, what Shmuel did for his daughters. So you made some sort of contraption that has the waters gathered in this torrent. However, the kalim that you are using, they're not fully submerged. They become like the walls that have the waters collected in it. But those kalim proper, if they were tamei, the kalim she'asim l'maymadim lo yoslam tevilam, because they're not totally submerged. Halacha yudzai. Gal sheniklash min hayam. You have a wave that got uprooted from the sea, and it fell on a person or on kalim. Now, im yesh bayar boim so, if this wave has in it that amount. For chulin, it's good enough. Why? The only reason why we're saying chulin. So first of all, a couple of things over here. The gal was coming from the sea. The sea that Rambam already paskin, that they are metarim b'zoichel, and really it's not only that the sea is metarim, even though it doesn't have 40 saw. Once the wave is disconnected from the sea, it doesn't have a din of yam. Now here's another chiddush. Here we are beginning in halacha yud zayin that the adam or the keli upon which this gal that got disconnected from its source is falling. Since the adam is on the ground, when the water goes on the adam or on the keli on the ground, it is considered ashboidim, which is good. Eloma, you have to have 40 saw. Now, the Rambam is writing l'chulin because about a secondary issue, and that is that when you are toiveling, you need to have kavanah. So, you don't even know what hit you. The gal flew on you. In a case where there was no kavanah, then it's good, at least for chulin. Like we learned in Ilchos Shavar Zatomis. And furthermore, it's not about that. If a person had kavanah, that means if a person was tummy and they want to eat truma, and they're standing by the seashore and they see this huge wave flying in the air, and they say, oh, this is perfect. I'm not going to run away from it. I'm going to stand there and halavai goes on me and I'm good. And I'm having kavanah l'taras truma, then it like works. Then which means that it even works for kodesh, but you have to have kavanah for kodesh. And it even works if you want to be metardi yourself from me, if you want to be metardi yourself from mechatas. Point is that it still is kosher. The chiddush is that it's considered ashboidim, even though it loses the status of yam. Now, that's only because the man or the keli are standing on the ground. Final halacha of the chapter, halacha yudches. Eimad bilan begal shuba aver. But if this wave is flying in the air, not one edge is touching the ocean, it already got disconnected from the ocean. The other edge didn't hit the ground. You want to dive through it. That doesn't work. You cannot be toivel at koydem shipal ala aretz, even though there's 40 saw. Why? Because like we mentioned, if the chiddush is that when the person is on the ground, even though the water, when it goes on the person, doesn't stay gathered, they're going to splatter all over the place, we consider it ashboidim. That's when the adam is on the ground. If the adam or the keli are not on the ground, then it has a status of zoichalim, flying waters. Lefisha eimad bilam is zoichalim. And if you can't be matbil in flowing waters, is kal v'chaymed, you can't be tribal in waters that's flying in the air. Now, what happens? If it hit the ground, it's still in a crescent. So it's amazing. You can be toivel in either edges, but not in the middle, not on the top. Madbilan boy, but the ain madbilan by kipashullah. You cannot toivel in the crescent because that's considered in the aver. Now, how much of it is considered the crescent and how close you have to be to the ground? That's something that the Rambam does not write. Moving on to today's third chapter. We're learning Perek Asiri of Hilchos Mikvos, and this chapter is all about speikos. And let's remember the general rule: Safek D'Oraisa L'Chumra, Safek Midrabanan L'Kula. We already mentioned that when there's a suffix regarding some details of 40 saw, we're going to learn about when do we say that a suffix is okay and when will we say that the suffix by a mikvah is not okay. This chapter has 8 halachas, beginning with halacha al. Zok the Rambam. Suffix mayim she'uvin. That we learn that if there's a doubt whether the mayim is she'uvin or not, the chachamim are mitahed. The Rambam says, hold on, let's classify that, let's limit that. When do we say that suffix mayim she'uvin she'tircham keitzad? What will be the classic case? Mikvah should stop it. If you have a doubt, im naflu l'toich mayim she'uvin oiloi naflu. Did any mayim she'uvin fall in or not? You have a doubt. And then even if you know b'vadei shenaflu, but as we learned before, the problem will only be twofold. If the mikvah did not yet have 40 saw and the mayim she'uvin was 3 loig or more. So suffix yesh by shleishus lugin, oiloisa shleishus lugin. And even if you know that there's mayim she'uvin in the amount of 3 lugin that fell into a mikvah, maybe the mikvah, if you have a doubt, maybe the mikvah already had 40 saw. Suffix shoyim a mikvah shenaflu saw suffix shloihoyim. The din is that's the chiddush here. Now, this qualification. In other words, when you have 3 loig of mayim that falls into a mikvah that doesn't have 40 saw, that is a din derabanan. So suffix derabanan l'kulam. Halacha beis. Shnei mikvahs echad yesh by arbaim saw ve'echad she'ein boim. And the naflu shleishus plugim of mayim she'uvim, but to one of them, and you don't know to which one it fell. That's another example where the chachamim were mitaher suffix mayim she'uvim sveikei tahor. Why? In other words, you can operate under the presumption that fell into the one that was already good. If you know that neither of them had 40 saw, and only one of them became disqualified, now you don't know which one. Now we don't say, each one is good. No. Because now, in other words, there's no reason to favor one over the other. So that's a great example of opening up over here in halacha base that yes, suffix mayim she'uvim shetiharu chachamim is yes, there is such a concept, but we don't apply it universally. Halacha gimel mikvah she'ini chayreikan uba umatzoyim alei. The din is, guys, this din in halacha gimel is only in Eretz Yisrael, as we'll see so. So the presumption is that now that you found it full kosher, here we do apply this concept. Beautiful. But we operate under the presumption that a mikveh that you discover is a kosher mikveh. Halacha dalit sinoir, a pipe, shoyu mikalech lemikvah. Right, that is carrying water into a mikvah, and there's a mill next to it. Now, guys, a mill is a keli. So water that went in through a water mill, those waters are disqualified waters. So now you have a problem. Maybe the waters, right, in the tzinoid, in the mikvah, came from the machteshes prior to the mikvah having 40 saw proper waters. So now again, it's possible. We don't say sfeik oitod because hapsul mechiach. Because you have something there. Now comes a huge chiddush. Time to know that if a mikvah has a roiv arboim sa, prior to the waters from the tzinor entering the water. Now, guys, if we know for sure that the waters of the tzinor came from the mill, for sure it passes the mikvah. Even 3 loig of mayim she'uvim passes the mikvah less than 40 sa. But if you have roiv of mayim miksham, and now there is a tzinoor, even though that there's something evident, there's a problem that we see, but it's not certain. Here we could be lenient. Because yes, shezeh suffix mayim she'uvim, shana yesh sham mikvah kosher kavua. Okay, big chiddush over here. But once we have a mikvah roiv ksherim, we already say it's a mikvah that's muchzak in kashrus, even though there's no 40 saw. Once a mikvah has a cheskas kashrus, suffix mayim she'uvim cannot pass it. Okay. Let's go back. Halacha. Kol hamikvois hanimtzois beretz Yisrael psulim. Wow. Beretz ha'amim. Slicha. Kol hamikvois hanimtzois beretz ha'amim psulim. Why? Because the chazaka of a mikvah that is not inside the Holy Land, now it has kasam she'uvin. The chol ha-mikvahis and hamtzois be'eretz Yisrael. So, so it sounds like, yeah, that will be good. No, hold on. There's another issue. That don't forget, they didn't have running water then. So gatherings of water inside the city, the words are lifnim and hamafteyach, within the city gates, we are chayish that people went over there the whole time to wash their garments, and therefore it's all mayim she'uvin. Even in Eretz Yisrael, shecheskas psulim she'an she'amadina mechapsu mehem umadbilu l'toich hamayim she'uvim tamid aber vas kol hamikvahis and hamtzois be'eretz Yisrael, but they are not within the gates of large cities. Chutz lamafteyach now is where we say cheskas taro, because we presume that the waters there were mekshavim and not mayim she'uvim. Halach above hatamei sheyared litvail. So this is halach is when you look at a mikvah and you want to know, do we presume the mikvah is good or not? So we have this rule that a mikvah that it's Yisrael chutz lamafteyach cheskas taro. Now, if someone is tamei and he went into a mikvah, and now we're not asking a shaila on the mikvah, we want to know whether there's a doubt whether that person properly went to the mikvah. Safik tavel, safik li tavel. No, he's not sure whether he went entirely under the mikvah, right? We just learned that going to the mikvah for chulin, we had this in the previous chapter, doesn't need kavana. So shaykh, a person who went into a body of water, they weren't even thinking of going to the mikvah. They, all of a sudden, they look back, did I go fully under the water? And if I did, at least l'chulin I'm tired or not. Even if you know you went under the water, but again, the judgment is not on the mikvah, it's on the person. I am tamei. I went to a mikvah, and now I have a doubt whether there was 40 saw. So the question is on the person, not on the mikvah, even though it's about whether the mikvah had 40 saw or not. Or two mikvahs, echad yesh bar b'ayim saw, echad ein b'ayim, and you went to the mikvah in one of them, the ein yodua be'ezeh behem taval, in all of these cases, faker tamei. Because Shahatomei v'cheskasa yachi yivada shetaval kara'ui. If you measure the mikvah now, that doesn't have 40 saw. So now the question is, how far back the apostle the mikvah makes no difference whether the mikvah is b'rishus harabim, whether it is b'rishus hayachid, for certain other areas of the Torah. Normally the rule is that's a suffix of tada, of tuma, b'rishus harabim, tar, b'rishus hayachid, tamei, as we learn from the Saita. V'chulei. Here we don't make a difference. Kol hataros shenasu al gabov limafreya will be tameos, because now you find it to be lacking. On how far back? Achi yavadazman shenimnad by v'hoya shalom. You have to mamish go back to the time that you measured it, and it was shalom. Well, then you know. Going forward, we say that the water that was removed right after the last time that you know it was good. The medvarim amurim that were so machmir that they go backwards. Guys, you have to help up for this. Tuma chamura means you became tama from a av hatuma. Makes no difference whether the av hatuma is the rice or the rabban. But the item became tama from an av. That's tuma chamura. For example, to begin with, it's only a sheni. For example, a person ate a halom tameim. That's even had tuma the rabban. Oy shasa mashkin tameim. Oy bar roish v'rubayim shu'uvim. Oy shenaflu al roish al rubash shlesh lugim. Mayim shuvim, as we learned above, these are all dinei tuma derabanan. Since now the mikvah was measured Sunday, 40 saw or more. Mikvah is measured Friday. Mikvah is lacking. How do we judge the week in between? Here, how do they say tahar? And by the way, it's not only in this last case where there's a doubt when it became lacking. In all of the cases that we mentioned, whether you went to the mikvah or not, there's a tuma, but it's only midrabana. And ikroi midrabana. Like we just mentioned, here we do say that svekoi tahar. Beautiful. Allah Zayin Shnei Mikva'os. Now let's put these them together. One is kasher, one is fast. And the trouble be'echad mehem. And now we have to remember someone who became tamei mituma chamura, which means someone who's tamei midoy rice. He went to one of them and he touched taharos. Now, if the guy went to the mikvah kasher, then the taharos are good. If he went to a mikvah that's possible, he remained tamei as he was. And now the taharos are not good. You have a doubt. Let's start with that. Remember that. Now, Taval Basheni, if he went later to the second mikvah, but also taharos, So here we say the first ones remain Tuluyos, obviously, and the Shniyas are Toloidos. Because before he touched the second Taharois, he went to both mikvahs. So Bevadai, one of them are good, so he's good. If these Taharois touched one the other, so Harashoinois, now listen to this, will be Tuluyos as it was. But the second, Bevadai, became Tamei. Now you have to have a couple over here. Why is the Taharois that were touched by the person after he went to the second mikvah Bevadai Tamei? Because like this, if the Tefillah Rishona was in the mikvah pasul, which means the Taharos of the Rishonos are Tamei, and they're Tamei from someone who became Tamei b'tumah chamura. So that person is a Rishon. The first ones are a Sheni. We're speaking about Taharos. So, through our Kachim, they can become a Shlishi. Kachim can become a Ravi. So they're Tamei. Hold on. Now let's go more. If the second mikvah was pasul, so the guy that went to the first mikvah was good. The first foods are good. But now the person, what's the din? If someone goes into Rosh Hashanah Shuvim, then he acquires tumakal. If he touches taharois, they become tummy. So why don't we say that the second foods are now going to be mitama the first foods? That we don't say. Because of the rule that if something became tummy only from this tumakala, they become tummy on the level of a shlishi. They cannot be mitama the rishonos. So the rishonos remain only tuluyos. They don't get worse. But the second ones is yisarfu. Now, if the person went to the first mikvah, you don't know which one you went into, and now you contracted tuma, and we're speaking about tuma kala. Oh, the emsa tuma kala should be anu. The total sheni also tarois. So then the shenis now will have to be burned. No. 1 second. And the second ones, it depends. If they didn't touch the rishonos, since you only became Tamei Tumakala and you went to the mikvah, now we have a doubt whether the mikvah was good or not. For Tumakala, we can say you went to the good mikvah. And therefore, in Mamish, like before, the Taharos Shniyos are good if they touched one the other. If they touched one the other, either they became Tamei through Tumakal of the person, if the second mikvah was not good, or they became Tamei because they touched the Rishonos. But if a person went to the mikvah in one of them, beginning with Tumakal, and he did Taharos, and like we mentioned, there we can say Tahar. And then he became Tamei in between going in the first and the second. But he became Tamei b'tumah chamura and b'tumah b'sheni v'asataros. So now the second is like the first. The first are completely tar. V'asheno is teluyas. And now in the opposite, v'imnogo elu be'elu. So there we say that the first are not good, and the seconds are teluyas kishahayu. All based on the rule that if some food becomes Tamei only from someone who became tumah b'tumah kala, that food, even by taras, cannot go further. These two mikvahs. Two people went, each one went into one. One went mituma chamura, but one mituma kala. Also tarais. So atloidel mituma chamura. What do we say? There's a doubt. If there's a doubt, we have to be machmer, and not to be burned, but to luyas. And about atloidel menakala, maybe he went into the good one. Mamash, like we learned before, taharais of tohidois. Now, hoya echad tamei. Tamei here, guys, is Tuma Chamura. The Yara Litpo with that Kavana. And there was another person that simply went to cool off. So we say like this: Zesh Yara Litpo be'echad mehem tarois of Tuluyos, as we mentioned, that if you have a Tuma Doid Isa and you have a doubt whether you went into the good mikvah or not, you can suffer. The Zesh Yara Lohakar Tar Kishayam. The one that went to cool off remains completely tahor. Because here you have enechanami, for a person who's tahor, who's only going to cool off in water. If he enters mayim she'uvim b'vada, he becomes tamei. But maybe not. Maybe you went into the kosher mikvah. So you have a suffix whether you acquire tumas mayim she'uvim. Here we can be lenient. And the final halacha of this chapter, halacha ches, shnei mikvahs shall esrim ve'esrim l'soma. You have two mikvahs, each one only has 20. One is shov and one is kosher. And guys, if you go into the mikvah that has 20 sa'ah, but it's not mayim she'uvim, you will not acquire the stuma derabbanan. Heker be'echem mehem, v'aso taharis arei tohiras, because you have a doubt. In maximum, it's a tuma she'ikrei midivrei. You can be lenient. But now, if you also went into the second one, heker b'sheni, and now you make taharis. Bevadai, one time you went into mayim she'uvim, harei elu yisarfu. And let's go further. No, it's even the chiddush is even though you went into even if the problem wasn't the first mikvah, and then you went into the second mikvah, but none of the mikvahs have 40 sah, so you never became a tahor from the tumah that you acquired by going into a mikvah of mayim she'uvim. Sherei vadai baruch mayim she'uvim k'moi shebi anu, and at that the chachamim were goyzer a tumah chavre gevaldi to be continued.